Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you may live or when you may be listening to this program. Welcome to Shattering Myths. This show is devoted to the most important and to the fastest growing segment of society, to those who have finally come to realize that the world's political, religious, military, and economic institutions are corrupt, that they are rotten to the core, that they are in fact counterproductive, and that not one of them can be fixed. Our mission on this program is to expose those who are working against our interest and to come to understand how and why they are doing so. Because exposing and condemning counterproductive schemes isn't hateful. It's the most caring thing we can do, even when those schemes are religious, patriotic, and political. In our concluding hour, we're going to use evidence and reason to continue to explore one of the most powerful prophecies found in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, one that is specifically delineating America for condemnation. When Christians wonder why America is not mentioned in prophecy, I beg to differ. It is mentioned, but not in a favorable light. Our program, if you'd like to call into it, be part of it, participate in this discussion, it's toll-free, 877-300-7645. Yesterday we had at least I had a good time. I've heard from a number of listeners who are enjoying the sports in the news segment with Scott and with Aaron. And we covered the Don Sterling racist rant from a very different perspective. And, the only reason I'm mentioning it today is twofold. One is that it was impossible yesterday, if you turned on the television, not to hear somebody going on and on and on about this and using the evidence that actually shows that he's, in his actions, not a racist. Now, in his deeds, his words, he's clearly a racist. But in his actions, that he's not a racist. And they're all using that to present a case that the opposite of what the evidence actually reveals. And it was ubiquitous. It was just, it was a great example, and I hope that many of you who listen to this program made this connection. It was a great example that almost everything you hear that is part of the mainstream media is factually inaccurate, and the conclusions that are drawn are almost universally misguided. And such is the case in the reporting on Donald Sterling. Now, I understand Donald Sterling's a creep. But the fact is that his housing project and his association with Elgin Baylor do not prove that he's a racist. They prove the opposite. Now, the other thing that is very troubling is almost universal. It didn't matter who the speaker was. They all concluded that there's no place for a person like Donald Sterling in society. Oh, really? So you can't hold a contrarian view. You're not allowed to be wrong in American society. Is that what they're really, it's clearly what they're saying. There's no place for the likes of Donald Sterling in society. So we're going to have a wholly homogeneous society. You're only allowed to think and to say, even to do, that which is accepted by the majority in the society. There'll be no rights for minority viewpoints. Think about the consequence of that. A totally homogeneous society where everyone just marches along to the orders of the media, academics. Now, doesn't exonerate this dude. He's a creep. But when we say you can't hold a view that is out of touch with reality, that is wrong, and that society must not allow anyone to hold or articulate a view that is inconsistent with societal norms, well, then why don't we just ban God? Let's make sure that we exclude him from everything, because everything he says is hateful, often racist, mean-spirited, according to those who are religious. Let's ban God. I mean, why not? I mean, God's not a racist in the sense of Donald Sterling, although he has a preferred race. And he speaks very derogatorily about all other races. Want to ban him as a racist? Let's not allow any view that is out of sync with society in this society. We're just all going to be the same. Wow. Now, if that's not enough to say, you don't want to be part of the whole. You don't want to go along. I don't know what you need. It is tragic that another 11 Americans have died, this time in Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee, from a continuation of the storm that is spawning hundreds of tornadoes. The storm's overall death toll now is, I believe, 31. That number's probably going to rise, so it is consistent with what happened last year and the year before, and the year before. We've now had 4 years in a row where massive tornadoes have come early. This year they didn't come as early as they did in the previous 2 years, but they've come early, and they've been ferocious. Now, your politicians trying to control you, trying to homogenize you, trying to confiscate your wealth and your freedom, will tell you that these killer storms are a result of climate change, and then they will slip in the idea of global warming. It's all a lie. Now, climates change, sure, but it's irrelevant, and there's absolutely nothing man can stop it. To present mankind, as socialist, seculist, humanists do, liberals do, as being in control of the environment elevates man to a status that is way beyond our station. There is nothing we can do, could have done, should do to prevent tornadoes. They are so far beyond our capacity to control or influence that the notion that will be promoted, that these storms happened because of climate change and man's activities, and therefore to prevent future killer storms we need to toe the line and move to stop global warming, is just how those who are empowered, those who seek even more power, are going to manipulate this disaster. It is repulsive, it is grotesque, but it is their nature. Be prepared for it. Don't buy into it. And of course, the first thing they will say is that, proof that the Earth is warming is the glaciers are retreating. Yes, they started retreating in 1875. They'll continue to retreat for the next anywhere from 300 to 600 years. Now, that would be, in this case, is probably going to be stopped because God's going to turn the entire Earth into Garden of Eden conditions in 2033. But had it not been stopped, that's just the cycle of things. The Earth for millions of years has gone through 600-year cycles where the glaciers advance and retreat, where the Earth warms and then cools, and then warms again. We started a warming cycle coming out of the Little Ice Age in 1875. That's reality. It's proven. It's not the least bit controversial. And it's also true that in the last 16 years, the temperature of the Earth, measured now exactly from satellites with many hundreds of precise probes, has actually cooled. Evidence and reason is not on the side, in this case, of politicized scientists who, along with politicians, want into your pocketbook. They want to deprive you of freedom. They want to redistribute wealth, with them becoming more powerful in the process. As it relates to this storm, the news today is that there are 75 million Americans that are still under the threat of severe weather. And that's a scary proposition. It appears to me that when you look at creation and God specifically says that as he created the universe and he caused light to transition, to coalesce, to form matter, a beginning time, that he speaks of the universe being chaotic initially. And it was. And he then speaks of it being chaotic again at the end. He tells us about the things that are going to happen on this planet between an asteroid strike, massive tsunamis, huge landslides that he speaks of, pestilence that is often environmentally begun, famines that have an influence in from an environmental point of view. And he speaks of tornadoes and hurricanes and cyclones and earthquakes, all becoming more frequent and more massive as we approach the last days, his return. And so it strikes me that the calculation that he used to create the universe was specifically designed so that it would begin as it would end, with the earth in a very violent upheaval. It is something we should get used to. It doesn't make it any better, but God at least told us that we should expect this. I read a story yesterday that really tore my heart out. It's a story that affirmed what I've always known to be true. But it nonetheless, hearing it from the lips of the Secretary of State that was appointed by the Obama administration, still made my skin crawl. I had just made Glenn live. Glenn, if you're listening, I put you on hold. That whatever you are holding as a telephone won't work. Kerry called Israel an apartheid state. I mean, we knew that's what he thought. He is anti-Semitic, as is Obama. They despise Israel. They despise Jews. They are working on behalf of Islam. That has been obvious for some time. But in a meeting filled with world leaders yesterday, Kerry called Israel an apartheid state. Wow. Welcome back to Shattering Myths. You knew it. You suspected it. You thought it had to be the case, but to have him actually say it, wow. And when he says it, for Americans just to go on about their lives as if nothing really happened and continue to pledge allegiance to the flag and sing the national anthem and at a seventh-inning stretch at a baseball game, take off their hat and say, God bless America, just shows how far we have gone as a people and our inability to recognize right from wrong. There are apartheid nations in this world. Of the 50 majority Islamic nations, most all of them are apartheid nations. You know, in Saudi Arabia, there is an apartheid against Christians and Jews, even against Shia Muslims. In Iraq, the apartheid is against Shia Muslims as well. Excuse me, it's against Sunni Muslims now. It was against Shia, it's now against Sunni, thanks to America. In Egypt, there's an apartheid against both now, with this government, the Muslim Brotherhood, fundamentalist Muslims, and also Christians. The 50 majority Islamic states will not give any Christian the same kind of rights that are afforded to Muslims. So there are 50 apartheid states in this world. All of them have one thing in common besides Islam. They all want to destroy Israel. And yet, the Secretary of State of the United States, John Kerry, amongst a grouping of international leaders repeatedly said that Israel is an apartheid state. Now, it's the opposite in Israel. It's the only country in the Middle East that actually gives full rights to minorities. In Israel, Muslims are a minority, Arabs are a minority, and yet they're given full rights of citizenship. Full access to health care, full access to employment opportunities. They are not discriminated against. The opposite of what he said is true. And yet for him to hold that view and to promote that view internationally, saying that if Israel doesn't acquiesce to his demand to give up its high ground, to slice the nation so thin that it becomes unsustainable, that the entire world will embrace his view of it being an apartheid state. Now, when congressmen began to say he's way out of line here, the first thing, and it was Cantor who was the first to say it, saying it's completely unacceptable, it's reprehensible, it's untrue, it puts us on the wrong side of this issue. And Cantor rightly showed righteous indignation. And the State Department wouldn't deny that Kerry said it, and today Kerry says, yeah, I said it. I should have chosen my words more carefully. Why is it that the world is focusing today on Donald Sterling as opposed to John Kerry? We do have Glenn back. I hope we have a better connection here, Glenn. Well,
it wasn't the connection. It was the noise from the hinges on my kitchen door.
Okay, there you go. Glad to know that.
I thought you would have me muted. Yeah, I didn't know you had me out. The thing is, well, first of all, you mentioned Sterling. One similarity between the Donald Sterling and Clive Bundy cases, you've got two different situations. Both involve the baiting of older, landed, white males. With, so it's like, but this is so it's all, really. So
should Bundy be forced to give up his cattle? Should he be forced to stop grazing on land that cattle ranchers in that area have grazed on for hundreds of years now? Should he be forced to do so because when baited, he will express racist views? My guess is that he has only white cows and no black cows in his herd.
Well, there's a fellow named Mike Rivero, radio talk show host, often says, if the law is on your side, argue logic. If logic if law is on your side, argue logic. If logic isn't on your side, argue the law. If neither of them are on your side, attack the man. It's all ad hominem.
Now, by the way, I read Bundy's comments on race, and I want to tell you what he said was even more reprehensible than what Don Sterling said. But his views on race are irrelevant as it relates to the U.S. government involved in a land grab that does not allow its citizens rights that they have always had. They are not related to one another. Welcome back to Shattering Myths. As we considered Kerry's proposal, where he was so arrogant in saying that Israel was going to accept his terms, that he had the best plan, that his plan was the only acceptable solution, that his plan was so thoughtful and so fair that it would be accepted, and that he, before meeting with Israel to impose his peace plan on them, went to meet with the leaders of most European countries who all agreed that if Israel did swallow this poison, that they would all impose severe sanctions against Israel, isolating Israel from the rest of the world. And then he has a slip of the tongue and exposes his real sentiments, calling Israel an apartheid state, which is the antithesis of what's true. And At the same time, we have the unelected Palestinian Authority that is the PLO now joining forces with Hamas, reconciling between the two, with Hamas being, like the PLO, in their charter still calling for Israel's destruction and actively engaged in Israel's destruction. You knew there had to be something that was going to occur to keep this peace process from going forward. It's not time. It's going to happen. The United States is going to be the nation that God despises for promoting it. But it wasn't time. This peace treaty, this land for peace, and I shouldn't call it a peace treaty because it's going to bring war. It's going to be exactly what Neville Chamberlain did to achieve peace in our time when he gave the high ground of Czechoslovakia to the Nazis. The United States peace treaty is going to accomplish exactly the same thing, ushering in the all-Islamic war. I'm not saying that because I'm predicting it, although I could predict it based upon past human behavior. I'm saying it because Yahowah said it, and he said it emphatically, in a way that's impossible to misinterpret. But there had to be something that slowed down this process, because it's going to occur, but it's going to occur in the fall of 2026, not right now. And so we have to be 12 years away. And so what happened? The Fatah and the PLO decided they would merge with Hamas. Well, that's a non-starter for Israel. They have zero interest. Hell could freeze over before they're going to negotiate anything with Hamas. So that ended it right there. And then trying to restart it and have Israel, force Israel to negotiate with Hamas, to compromise with Hamas, Kerry throws out this apartheid bomb. And now the world knows, Jews know, Israel knows, what those who had thoughtfully evaluated what was occurring came to know some time ago, that the United States not only can't be trusted, but the United States is on the wrong side. That the United States is an enemy of Israel, its greatest single foe, which is precisely the way that the 17th and 18th chapters of Isaiah were written. This is dead now, man. I want to tell you, absolutely dead. Now, will the world treat Israel as an apartheid state? Absolutely. Will they isolate it? Absolutely. Will they boycott it? Absolutely. Will they put sanctions on it? Yes. Will they blame Israel for all of the terrorist attacks that occur around the world? That is correct. Even though none of it will be valid. That all of those attacks will be promoted by the very Muslims that want Israel's destruction, the very Muslims that will come from Islamic countries that are apartheid countries and have been for a long time. If you're listening to this program and you are still patriotic, stop it. Your country is not worth your support. If you are still political, stop it. You know, particularly if you're in the 41% that thinks that this president is doing a good job. I would say even if you're in the 59% that thinks he's not doing a good job, majority of those probably would favor the other party. Don't. It's time, folks. Join the rest of us. Recognize that your country, I'm not saying average Americans, I'm saying its leadership, its economic leadership, its political leadership, its religious leadership, its media leaders, its military are rotten to the core, repulsive, universally counterproductive. You have been given a great gift in this revelation, and unfortunately is being drowned out by nonsense related to Don Sterling. You've just now been given a window into the heart of America's leadership. And it is evil. Anything you'd like to add or take away from that, Glenn?
Well, it's going to continue to be problematic. I mean, it seems pretty futile to have a Mormon who is the representative of a supposedly secular state attempting to broker a deal between Muslims and Jews. Boy, that's just really a stretch. Now, I'm wondering if
is John Kerry a Mormon?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, no wonder he's such a reprehensible.
No, I'm sorry. I stand corrected. I was thinking of Mitt Romney.
Yeah, no, he's not.
I'm sorry. I don't know what made put that in my head. I sometimes never both like tall trim guys. I think I just have to.
Yeah. No, that was Romney, but who was lost for that?
He's worse than a Mormon. He's the skull and bones guy, which is worse than a Mormon. Actually.
Yeah, I think Kerry is. I do think Kerry is skull and bones. Along with George W. Bush was skull and bones.
They both had their little occultic quirks. I think that's why I mixed them up for a second. Actually, Kerry could be referring to Avigdor Lieberman's recently solicited legal opinion advice on the potential for expelling Palestinian Arabs. By changing the Palestinian state border and expelling Israeli Arabs into that zone with some sort of provisional modification of their citizenship, blah, blah, blah. So, it could be that he's referring to.
No, he wasn't. No, he was referring to the conditions, trying to paint. It's a continuation of his discussion with European leaders 3 months ago. Same exact theme, that Israel will be denounced by the world, isolated by the world, sanctioned by the world, denounced by the world if it doesn't capitulate and give its land to those who want to destroy it. It's has nothing new popped up. It's just a continuation of the same mentality.
Well, the thing that always strikes me is when you're looking at the time frame, your expected time frame, is that I just every day I shake my head. How are they going to squeeze another 12 years? Something. Yeah. Things have to keep happening to keep setting it back.
That is correct, and they are. Like, for example, one of the things that the prophecy speaks of Damascus becoming a twisted heap of ruins. Now, the suburbs of Damascus already are, but Damascus center is not, and it speaks of the Syrian government falling. And at this point, they have demonstrably shown that they have the upper hand. Now, America is rapidly increasing the power and frequency, the power and sophistication and the quantity of weapons that it is supplying to the Islamic terrorists.
They just did anti-tank and anti-air missiles to them shoulder missiles.
Yeah. In fact, actually, Obama did that 4 months ago in a secret edict from the White House that has become public and now has become obvious because there's the fundamentalist Muslim terrorist mujahideen that are deploying them are filming their use of these American weapons, the surface-to-air missiles, anti-tank missiles, and 50 caliber machine guns. I mean, it just goes on and on what we've given them. And so now it's obvious that plus the memo has been made public, and also we're seeing the videos of it. And what the prophecy says is that the Muslims, once they prevail in Syria, and at this point, I mean, that's going to go on for some time, and it's gone off of the front page because the world is fixated on the Ukraine, which is, America once again trying to instigate world war. And so the only reason that that Syria has kind of fallen beneath the front page is because of what's happening in Ukraine. Like yesterday's news on Syria ought to have so embarrassed past and current presidents that we would, as Americans, start to reject our use of our military, because it was shown that the very country that America liberated from Saddam Hussein, who was the most effective anti-terrorist leader in the Middle East, that country that we disposed for, that we freed from him, Kuwait, has become the largest supporter of weapons to Islamic terrorists.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how much information do you need to have before you say, oh boy, everything my government's doing is wrong.
Right.
Immoral.
If you're a foreign country, I think some of the scariest words you can hear are, "We're from the United States government and we're here to help you."
Oh, the duck. Where's the cruise missile? Where's the drone? Where's the shock and awe? Where's the betrayal? That's what America did in Kiev when it went to the protesters. And here, I'm from the CIA. I represent the United States of America. I'm the ambassador of the United States of America. We're here to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll have your back. We'll run interference for you. We're here to help you. Yeah, great. And now we're going to supply the Ukrainian government with weapons so that they can start killing Russians with them because we're baiting them into war.
Right. And this ought to give Israel pause. I mean, Israel might look back. There was a time when Israel made a lot of its own weapons. They had the fur fighter and, manufactured more of their own weapons.
Yeah. Actually, now they make the most sophisticated. Yeah, actually, though, they also make many of the ingredients of America's most powerful weapons. Even things like our missile defense system, a lot of the guidance systems for those are developed and manufactured in Israel. A lot of the technology that is used in American weaponry is made in Israel. We would be in trouble without them. Welcome back to Shattering Myths. I'd like to turn our attention now to one of America's great heroes, probably the most intellectual and articulate person in this country, a real political hero of mine, former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin. She was speaking. Somebody's going to take that part of this and post it to say, "Oh boy, this guy's a whack job." No, I am not a fan of Sarah Palin. I think she's an absolute nincompoop.
Caribou Barbie.
Oh, wow. The Saturday Night Live skit that was done on her had to be amongst the funniest skits of all time because every bit of it was true. Anyway, Sarah Palin told a capacity crowd at the National Rifle Association, boy, it's terrible, even though I'm a fan of the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, it's hard to say that you would approve their choice of spokespeople. But anyway, they listened to her speech, and she said that she would baptize terrorists through waterboarding if she was an elected official. Says, if I were charged, Palin said, they would know that waterboarding is how we baptize terrorists. Okay, well, that's really sick. I mean, it's really sick. First of all, you can never prevail through torture. There has never been anything that has ever been gained that is moral, useful, beneficial, that has been achieved through terror. I know George W. Bush used to say, yeah, I know that we used some harsh techniques, but look what we learned in the terrorism that we stopped. He didn't stop any terrorism, didn't learn a thing. There is nothing anyone has ever learned that has ever benefited in any way from torture. A person who is tortured will say anything to stop the torture. And the person perpetrating the torture is no better than the Roman Catholic Church throughout the Inquisition, with all of their perverted implements to impose pain. The country that tortures is a worthless country. It is a worthless and immoral technique. And to praise waterboarding in a political context using a religious term is incredibly dangerous and irresponsible. What a scum this woman is.
And
interspeech.
To the cause.
Oh, stunningly counterproductive to the cause. You know, those of us who are Second Amendment advocates that now are discredited because of this woman's idiocy, because we will be associated with this stupidity. You know, I'm an advocate of the Second Amendment. Now, I don't hunt with my rifles. I have rifles. I have pistols. I like target practice with them. But that's not why I'm a Second Amendment advocate. I'm a Second Amendment advocate because I know that the same thing that Thomas Jefferson knew, that if Americans were armed, it would be impossible for any nation to invade and occupy this country. Our freedom is guaranteed by the Second Amendment so long as it's not infringed. Now, of course, we are infringing it. Jefferson knew that we would not need an established military and that we can avoid what Jefferson calls the single greatest evil to be perpetrated on a country, which is an established military, if we honored the Second Amendment. It would be impossible for any nation to rob Americans of their freedom if the Second Amendment was not infringed. Simple. That's why I'm an advocate of the Second Amendment. I would do away with the Department of Defense, completely eliminating the U.S. military. You do not need it if Americans are armed, consistent with the Second Amendment. And so that's why I'm an advocate. But when you have morons like Sarah Palin making stupid statements like this, and one's advocacy is associated with this idiot, that's not a fun position to be in, I want to tell you. The NRA should promote a declaration to say, now that was stupid. We are sorry for having her come to speak to this convention. What she said was ridiculous. Now, she made another comment that she didn't know how to communicate effectively and didn't know which words to apply to it. But when Shattering Myths continues, after the break, we will consider the other statement that Miss Palin made, this one about Nidal Hasan and the Fort Hood incident. We'll be back after the news and commercial break.